What's up, guys? Welcome to the June Tidal Gardens live show. I'm gonna have to probably speak up just a little bit. I already can tell because it is an absolute rainstorm going on behind me. So we'll see how that goes. I don't know if you guys can hear me okay, but in the comments, let me know how the audio is sounding. Like usual, we are a little early. I like to start about 10 minutes before the 2 p.m. official start time of the live show, just to get out any kind of like technical wrinkles that we need to, and also gives me a chance to say my thank yous and everything like that to the YouTube members as well as the Patreon crowd. But real quick, for those early folks that have jumped in, welcome. Glad to see everybody's hopping in early. Makes me know that the YouTube notification system actually works. Sometimes it does not. So what's going on? What's going on with everybody? Is everyone having a good weekend so far? Me being like Mr. Exciting over here, I've got to like celebrate stuff like I get to sleep in today. And this is pretty much the only thing I have to do. So good times, good times. So while we wait for more folks to come in, I will quickly go over some of my thank yous. First to the Patreon crowd. So thank you very much, Toby Robinson, Bill Russell, Jeremy Altman, Dave Davis, Kendra Ransom, Rebecca Hull, Alyssa, Miguel Pires, who is in chat I saw earlier, Scotty D, Rigoberto Rodriguez, Thomas Tarrant, Keith Singer, Skylar Korn, Sana Nomine, Puddle Aquatics, Amy Bruner, Tim Garner, Harkins Aquatics, Diane Rishworth, Philip Harton, Zara McIntosh, Brandy Camp, Gwen Nicodemus, Lisa Clow, Christopher Frame, Ernest Wallace Jr., The Classroom Reef, Chuck Admire, Jean A. Van Voorst, Rico's Aquariums, Christopher H. Curry, Alan Jackson, Kevin Cortez. Wow, this is a long list. Kevin Cortez, Trevor Joseph Overbeck, Ryan Kern. And then on the YouTube membership side, thank you so much for Deidre Zuener and Ross Henderson. Smaller list on the YouTube side, but that's only been up for like a month. So anyways, you guys, looks like we got about 7 minutes of chill time left. So checking out the chat, getting all caught up. Got some highs and hellos from Canada. Audio sounds good, excellent. Let's see, Ronnie is asking if we've got torches on this show. I don't think we do, because I think in general right now, we're really shy on torches. Like the only time that we really get torches now is from hobbyists that I really trust, because we've noticed that some of the torches that get imported can come in a little bit rough, and they are at a very, very high price point and come with strings attached. So it's a big initial investment and it's a high risk product. So unless I'm getting it from somebody that's been growing it a while, we don't usually mess with it too much. Now we do have some that we're trying to grow out ourselves, but we haven't offered those for sale in a little while. Let's see, Tropical Corals, hello from Spain. Wow, big international crowd it looks like. AIO fan, hello from my couch. I know the feeling. I know the feeling. Hello. That's like my just favorite thing to do. It's just like to do absolutely nothing. So as far as like the coronavirus lockdown goes, it's like great for somebody with my lifestyle. So I don't feel the obligation to be social or anything like that. I get to stay home, be comfy. Let's see. Sean Davies is asking, any tips on hitting the reset button on a neglected tank? Well, there's a couple of things you can do. Sometimes you don't necessarily need to reboot it quite as hard as you might think. So if I was to kind of like hit a hard reset, I would probably go about it by doing a lot of successive heavy water changes. But for every water change, I'm assuming that there's a substrate of some kind. Don't know why I'm assuming that there's plenty of bare bottom tanks. But what I would do is pretty much use that water as like an export mechanism for detritus and all kinds of other stuff. So I'd be doing a lot of siphoning and scrubbing rocks. So basically like a toothbrush with a little bit of like siphon tubing to like very aggressively like remove a lot of the algae and all that stuff. I would siphon the substrate, get as much detritus out of the substrate as possible, even perhaps taking a lot of the live rock out and cleaning that, maybe perhaps even outside of the tank, and then reinserting it. There's a lot of different directions to go, but essentially it's a lot of elbow grease and a lot of water changes successively over a few days or a few weeks even. That's probably the way that I would go about it. So for example, I've got a tank that we've had running now for, I would say, close to like 6 years, maybe even longer. And it's fine, a little neglected. It's a 200-gallon tank. And it's pretty much come to my suspicions, I guess, that there is a very large crab in there that's eating my leather corals. So at some point, I think what we're gonna be doing is completely breaking that thing down, taking out all the rocks, moving all the fish, moving all the corals, and then just going like rock by rock and try to deal with any kind of like weird hitchhiker that might have come in 6 years ago as a little tiny itty bitty crab and now is probably like a full-size problem. So yeah, things like that can be done. And so again, it's just taking your time with it, really just scrubbing through all the rock, all the substrate. That's really all you can do, unless you wanted to like completely restart a tank, which in my opinion might even be harder. Just because getting the bacterial load to where it needs to be and stuff like that can be an issue. Nathan Gist, quick hello, running out to get me and the boy lunch. Nice. Nathan stopped by the other day and we were doing, so yes, people were always asking about how the aquascape is going in the new tank. And this past weekend, it wasn't even weekend, it was Thursday, Nathan came over, and this is something I've been procrastinating for a long time because everybody here, and myself especially, thought doing an aquascape was a huge pain in the butt. So we just put it off because we had other things to do. So we just sat down and actually started to do it with like super glue and sand, and it was amazing. It was like the coolest thing that we've done all year. And after that, we're like, everybody here was just like, we can't wait to do more aquascaping. So yeah, it was definitely a good thing that Nathan stopped by, and that kind of like forced us to do some aquascaping. And I think that he got some good experience with it too, because he's planning a new tank down the road. And he didn't really know what he was going to do for his aquascape, but it's pretty clear now what we're going to all be doing, because it was remarkably easy. And I'm going to do a video on this as we get a little bit further in the process. But yeah, sand, super glue, and Marco Rock can do a lot of stuff, a lot of cool stuff with it. Let's see. Okay, so we got 45 seconds real quick. Acan Skywalker, what's up, fan? So glad I bumped into your live stream. I was so bored. Now I'm happy camper here in Downers Grove, Illinois. Awesome, glad you could join us. So when I switch over, there might be a glitch, because oftentimes when I change scenes for whatever reason, sometimes the broadcast software or the stream or whatever, sometimes it likes to bomb out. So usually it comes right back. So just a fair warning, sometimes number one gets cut off. Reading the comments here real quick. Okay, so hopefully that went well. We'll see. Okay, so Reefer 250 dude is asking, is there such a thing as too much flow in a reef tank? Yeah, I would say so. There's definitely it's definitely possible to strip the flesh right off of corals with too much flow. Even super high flow corals like SPS, it's possible. We've done it. So you kind of have to, you know, observe. Like observation is easily the most important skill that you can develop as a hobbyist, and just knowing what it is that you're looking at. So when it comes to too much flow, you'll know it when you start stripping corals. Harkins setting up a new tank. Sounds awesome. Sounds awesome. It's always exciting to start with new tanks. And I say that purely hypothetically because I literally have like a 600-gallon tank downstairs that is completely cycled as a part of a 2,000-gallon system. It has been empty for, I don't know, months now. So clearly it's not that exciting for me, but I think it was the aquascape component that was like really slowing me down. But yeah, like I'm excited about it more now that we like know what sort of things that we can build. It's going to be really cool. It might not be this completely floating aquascape design that I was originally thinking of, just because the scale of it, it's just like an engineering nightmare, but it's going to have a lot of floating elements to it. So be nice. It will be nice. Jake George, hey Than, that Colorado sunburst anemone looked amazing on your birthday live stream. Happy belated birthday. Thank you. Yeah, the sunburst it's huge. Like when we first got it, I would say that it had better color than it does currently. But as far as its size, it's like quadrupled in size. So we're just kind of like letting it do its thing, and hopefully it'll split soon. Now, I think that part of the reason why it might have colored down was we were treating like heavy doses of Vibrant to control algae at one point, because when we first started to do Vibrant, it was like the cure-all for all of our any like slightly problematic looking algae was just gonzo with that stuff, and it wasn't bothering any corals. And after like a while, there were like a couple corals that didn't seem to like it, so we stopped. But we noticed a couple things had down colored since then, and I think it was one of those things that, unfortunately, a very expensive anemone that did also down color. I mean, then again, it could be other things entirely that are completely unrelated to Vibrant. So, but it was kind of in that same time frame. So once it colored down, I think it's slowly starting to regain some of its good color. So lots of stuff to be happy about there. Dan Marklew, how do you make upset Ghanies happy again? I would say it's a two-step process. One is probably to more aggressively keep up with water chemistry issues. So if you're having any type of like elevated nutrients or zeroed out nutrients, you might want to like take a look at the water chemistry aspect. The second thing is Ghanies really appreciate feeding. So if you're able just to like turn off the pumps every day and just like coat them with all kinds of like small planktonic type foods, they do well. Craig Whitaker, first time live stream. Welcome, man. Let's see. Simon, hello from England. Thank you. Hello. England, you know, I'd like to make another visit back there, but I don't think they're letting anybody in. And you know, I'm actually kind of uncomfortable traveling right now. I've got a speaking engagement coming up, not soon, but like I think that it's getting like the health issues are getting worse here. And I don't know how badly I want to hop into a plane anytime soon. So, yeah. There's all these places I want to travel to, but I think travel is just kind of canceled right now. Like, 2020 and travel might not be a thing. Like the idea of just like going to conferences, going to shows, all the shows got pushed off into the fall, but now that the fall is, we're encroaching more towards fall season, you know, like September, October, November. I don't know. Some of these shows I could totally see getting pushed back even further. So we'll see how that goes. Chris Duncan, is it normal for meteor shower CYPHASTREA to have rust-colored flesh and bright orange polyps? Not normal, no. CYPHASTREA can change color to some degree, but it doesn't change color quite that much. You might have just got an interesting color morph. There's plenty of these kind of in-between color morphs that kind of get all lumped in. But they're one of the ones that typically stay the color that, in the same geography of color, I would say. Chris Cruz, I'm growing Acropora fine, but can't keep GSP alive in the same tank. Could be a couple of reasons for that. If you're running super low nutrient, GSPs are probably not going to love that. Also, I noticed some people, even when like the nutrients are slightly elevated, they'll struggle with GSP because the flow around just those GSPs are not quite enough. And I know that like green star polyps are just one of those things that really, really benefit from high flow. Alexis the Reef Maiden, happy birthday, thank you. I'm much older now. You have become my coral guru. I love listening to your coral highlights while I work. Awesome, thank you very much, Alexis. Yeah, like my my coral specific videos tend to not do very well, but that's kind of like what this channel is all about. It's really about the corals. So I will continue to do them regardless of what Google thinks about it. Let's see. How fast do SPS grow, assuming water parameters are in order? So a lot of things get thrown into like the big category of SPS. Some are kind of slow. Most are very fast. For example, I would say that Paraites are one of the slowest growing corals, period, end of story. So we have like this canary yellow kind, and we get it every now and again, and we usually sell it before it ever really gets going because we'll frag it, and 6 months later it just doesn't grow. Like it's just like the slowest growing thing ever. And Paraites, if you're familiar, it doesn't look a lot different than Montipora, for example. But in that same time period, Montipora might have grown 10 times in size. Alberto Valenzuela, I never hear you talk about reefroids. Do you not use it and have an explanation why or not something in particular? So we're not super product centric here. We've used reefroids before. We've used all types of coral, different feeding planktonic powders like Coral Frenzy. We even use so I get my salt from a place called Omega Sea. All right, nobody else uses Omega. Don't worry about it. But they're actually known for their fish foods. Like that's kind of like their sweet spot. It's like their prepared fish foods. And my sales rep there, she's like, we have like all this like manufacturing waste essentially. It's just buckets and buckets and buckets of like powder from making flakes and pellets and stuff. It's like, do you guys want to try some? And we just started using that, and like the corals went berserk over it. So when you really just break it down, it's ground up plankton and other foodstuffs. So all of this stuff is pretty good. Like, and we use a mix of stuff. So it's not like we're kind of saying, oh, this product is good, this product is bad. We kind of like use it all. And we also like make our own frozen foods and stuff. So yeah, we even started to make our own amino acids. So it's just like a mix of stuff. What is up, Luke? Luke is in the house. Yeah, Luke is the guy that's, so when I do my video on the aquascape, if you see like hands working on rocks, it's mostly going to be Luke. I was behind the camera, obviously. Any cool hammers or torches up on this live show for today? There might be a hammer. I don't think that there's going to be a torch. We're generally pretty low on torches. We need to propagate a lot of torches. Excuse me. Okay, so Luke has a better answer than I do. We have some hammers coming up midway through the show. So Luke is the one who actually picked the corals. The entire live show here is a big collaborative process. So Luke and Ben do a lot of the coral picking and pricing. So if you have a problem with my pricing, blame these guys. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Besides, prices are good. This one's like 40% off. But Becca shoots all the video, and then I edit it, and then obviously I come hang out with you guys. So I'm like the DJ, I just pump my fist for like 3 hours and we're good. So Dan Walters is asking or saying, will adding iron to my algae reactors help keep Chaeto alive? I can't keep it alive more than a month using 2 reactors wrapped in LEDs. Okay, it could be an issue with iron. Now, when you're talking about dosing any trace element, test for it. Like, don't assume that it could be iron, it could be manganese, it could be iodine. Test. Because when you look at what portion of salt water is trace elements, it's almost not even there. And the way that iron works specifically with algae is that it's kind of like, it acts as like a hard limiter on algae growth. So for example, you know, algae needs like phosphate and stuff like that. And so oftentimes people associate like the level of phosphate with how much algae are going to be growing. But in the ocean, and I know that you can't always analogize everything that goes on in our systems with the ocean, a lot of reasons for that. But in the ocean, it's iron, not these other nutrients, that is like the hard limiter to algae growth. If you boost up the iron for some reason, if there's like some weird chemical runoff, there's actually, if you do a Google search, there are some iron issues going on in these reefs, and it's causing massive destruction because of algae growth, because there's enough of these other nutrients to grow essentially infinite algae, but it's the iron level that caps it. So in our systems, which tends to be, I guess, very tightly controlled as far as iron goes, if you are running like a highly productive algae reactor, it's possible to completely strip out the iron and kill off all your algae that way. So if you're worried about that, moral of the story is you have to test for it. I wouldn't just start randomly adding in iron, because any amount of iron that if it's not iron and you've just added in iron, you're at possibly doing like some kind of algae bomb in your tank because of how tiny amounts of iron you actually need. So take that for what it's worth. I think I need to do a video on trace elements in general. I started scripting one a little while back, but it kind of got pushed to the back. So catching up on chat. Let's see. KEDD'S corals. Tidal Gardens. I did buy inexpensive T5 fixtures you recommended, and I got ATI bulbs for it. So far, so good. I did an LED strip as a supplement. I think you'll be pretty happy with it. Like, we're at the point now, which has been like 3 or 4, 4 years or something like that. Where just now some of the T5 fixtures that we got from Amazon are starting to fail, but you have to also understand that they were in a greenhouse and we didn't exactly even go as far as wiping them clean. They're gross and we just let them go until they died. Yeah, considering like the cost of them, they're practically free. I mean, when I got them, they were $100 shipped next day air or something like that. It was ridiculous. Like I can't ship something like that size for under $70 probably. And here it is, like showing up practically the next day. And they come with bulbs, but they're like horticultural bulbs, but that you can't really use for reef aquariums. But yeah, I mean, it was a tremendously, ridiculously cheap product. So if you just needed lights, I think they're still about $150. So yeah, just like check out the Amazon link in my lighting videos. Alexis is asking, do you have a recommendation for a baby's first SPS? I want to try one and I've been monitoring my water and lighting parameters, but I'm super nervous. So when you're talking about SPS, like a lot of times people kind of just equate SPS with Acropora. But in reality, most SPS share care requirements similar to just about every other coral. So there's not really any like special super demanding care requirements that you need for them specifically. So if you wanted to look at something that's kind of hardy, I'd look at Palawapora that tends to grow really fast and is pretty indestructible. Even like certain MONTIPORA, the plating varieties, some MONTIPORA digitata, that sort of thing, that's a perfectly good first foray into SPS. Stylophora is another option, and Seriatopora, bird's nest coral. And some people do or don't consider LEPTOSERIS an SPS, but LEPTOSERIS is also another one worth trying if you're looking for something that's more encrusting. A lot of different directions to go, but basically Acropora is where you get into some weirdness. I don't know if you guys can hear this in the background, but there's like a concert or something like that going on at the church next door, or they're like testing their equipment or something. Because I can hear like a bass track at a church, and it's really weird because when this live stream started, no joke, was a torrential tropical thunderstorm downpour, and I'm like thinking, I don't think it's safe to be running that equipment out there, guys. About to get electrocuted. Craig Whitaker, will stray voltage affect my aqua or softies? Can fish feel it? Guaranteed the fish can feel it. So if you look on your fish, they have like a lateral line that kind of like runs down their side. That is picking up electrical signals. So yes, fish can definitely feel it. And sometimes they'll get like a head and lateral line erosion, and I think that can kind of be a symptom of stray voltage in the aquarium. Basically, stray voltage is pretty bad. I try to avoid that whenever possible. The only time I ever kind of feel it, unfortunately, is if I get like a cut on my wrist, or a cut on my wrist, on my fingers. If I do have a cut, I have cats, guys. I've got cats. So I stick my hand in, and it's like, whoa, that's not feeling right. Then I have to go through and start unplugging all these things. Sean Davies, have you noticed less of a summer slowdown in the hobby due to COVID? Well, one thing for sure is we can very clearly look at web traffic, because we've got Google Analytics installed, and there's definitely a dip in website visitation. Has that affected sales? Not really, but I mean, that could be like small sample size too. But we always expect to see this dip right around like June, July, August. and we are seeing it. But having said that, we're getting better viewership every year on the website. So what is a dip now would have been like fantastic viewership 2 years ago. So there's that. Miguel, fan, thoughts about the Euro Aquatics E5 LED? None whatsoever. I have no familiarity with that fixture. When it comes to a lot of the lighting fixtures, I'm pretty, don't know what the heck I'm talking about mostly. I mean, we've only tried like a handful of fixtures out here. So most of our systems right now are running some variety of Ecotech Radeon. We've done ATI T5s. We still have several fixtures of those. We've tried those cheap Amazon T5 fixtures. We've done Reef Bright strips. We've done aqualumination, but we don't have any aqualuminations currently anymore. And I'm looking also into trying some Orphix. So I just reached out to them recently because Nathan, who was in chat a little while ago, he has one on his frag system, and he's really happy with the color of the corals. And then whenever he sells some of his corals to us, yeah, I mean, I can tell it's like they're very, very nicely colored. So there's a couple of tanks that we have here that I would like to kind of experiment with the Orphix stuff. And there's one specific implementation that I'm really excited about, but I'm not going to spoil it until it's actually being done. So I'm excited about what might be a really cool show tank using that type of lighting. Martana said, pump up the beat. Yeah, exactly. Pet Malu Life. How soon would you start a refugium when starting a reef tank? Refugiums are tough with me. Like, so I struggle with refugiums in general because I think that they have some really good benefits, but at the same time, they have some complications, and I don't know, for me, if those complications make a refugium worthwhile. Now, just to answer your question, you could probably start it up at the exact same time and grow the two together. So I don't see there's any reason for you to not immediately just start one. My problem with refugiums is you're essentially eliminating from that tank stuff that could be eating the little creepy crawlies that you're growing, as well as herbivores that are going to eat the algae that you're growing in your refugium, right? So that comes with two problems. Sometimes you're going to throw all this like really cool macroalgae in there, and you're immediately going to run into an issue with like problematic algae growing on the algae that you like. And it's at that point, it's like really hard to eliminate. Also, pests, if you have pests in your tank, are going to find their way into the refugium and are going to stay there and reproduce forever. And that's kind of a crummy experience to go through. So for example, we have like these 30-gallon tanks, and they seemed like a good idea at the time. We got them like used 15 years ago or something crazy like that. We plumbed them all in, and it's nice to have like separate aquariums for everything. But the problem is there's like no active predation going on in there. So in our big giant main farming tanks that have a lot of fish and have a lot of pest management type animals like copper bands and damsels and wrasses and stuff, there's pretty much no pests to speak of. But in these little 30-gallon tanks that are kind of isolated but all still interconnected, you're going to see like problematic stuff that can pop up there. We'll turn those systems off, bug bomb them, wait about 3 months, they'll start coming back slowly. So that's kind of like my issue with having like refugiums like as a concept. So rant over on that. Jessica J, is it just me or is the live chat stuck at 2:08 p.m.? That might be you. Might be you. Might just hit the refresh. So real quick, chat. Okay, good. I'm seeing new posts come in. So Jessica, that might be your browser. Giovanni Cordero, what is your best recommendation in AI 32 HD Spectrum? I've never used that light. So hopefully somebody else in chat that's more familiar with that fixture can help you out. But I haven't owned any of the newer AI lights. Pretty much all. So AI and Ecotech, I think, are basically the same company now. They merged. And so I've always just stuck on the Ecotech side of things, or specifically Radion's. Tattoo dancer. In your experience, can euphilia grow back from a bit of receding? The receding has stopped. The polyp doesn't cover the entire old skeleton anymore. It's possible. It's just slow. That's the only problem when you're talking about euphilia. Obviously, the dieback, not a great thing. But as long as it fully stabilizes and you're patient with it, it can come back. Slowly, it can come back. Mark Tillman, I really like how you show the different color temps for each coral. Can you describe how you do that? Yeah, it's a special effect. It is not a practical effect. It would be really, really challenging for us to do it as a practical effect. So I just found a way to do it, to try to get like a decent representation of it. It's gonna, changing color temperatures, it's going to depend a lot on the type of lighting that you have anyway, and also the type of coloration the coral takes on. So it's mainly just to get you into the ballpark of what you can expect under the different color temps. So it's like, it's a good change of pace, I guess. But your results are going to vary quite substantially, and lighting plays such a big difference in coral appearance. It's not even funny. So, but it is a special effect, to answer your question. Marcus Aurelius 187 just tuned in, missed last 3 lives, can't even watch this on phone, keeps skipping. So in short, hi and bye. See you later. Is anybody else having problems with skipping? Because I'm looking at my broadcast software, and I see that we've dropped 20 frames. So it might be your connection, bud. So for those folks that don't know, we're running a live stream that is delivering 60 frames per second. We have dropped 20 frames total this whole live stream. I've had live streams where we've dropped and this is when we were doing like crazy stuff that wasn't working out, where we dropped, I think, 3,000 frames, but 20 is pretty low. Let's see, S2 Minute. Is there a way we could obtain some of that waste product that you get from Omega C? I'd like to try it. I don't know, maybe contact them directly? Not really sure. It's not a product that they carry, right? So it's just dust, essentially. Food manufacturing dust. Yeah, and so we just got like a bucket of it. But yeah, it's so far like that we've been messing with it. Coral seem to like it. Victor Viking, favorite wave maker? Have you tried Red Seas? I have not tried Red Seas. I think, isn't Red Sea basically like a max spec gyre clone? Because we have gyres and we like gyres just fine. They just need to be cleaned all the time. So if there's any downside, it's probably that to that design. Personally, I kind of like closed loops a lot, which probably doesn't help most people, but I really like how easy it is to service the pumps in a closed loop. Greg Reef Boy. Hey, fan. Do you think you will ever have any small show tanks in your new building, species specific, like rock flower anemones or all mushrooms? So funny you ask. We're thinking about doing a rock flower tank in the greenhouse, as well as a mini maxi tank in the greenhouse. And we also just received some aluminum T-slot stands from this company in Cincinnati called AluFab that is going to host 2 more show tanks. But these show tanks are going to be about 250 gallons apiece, and we're going to plumb them into our 2 existing systems that we have here. So the idea with those 2 250-gallon aquariums is, I think that I want to do basically a bubble tip anemone tank in each one. I've heard that bubble tip anemones need to have separate systems entirely. Like you can't have like 3 different tanks all plumbed together and have 3 different bubble tips. Some people say that's completely ridiculous, and I apologize for this one. This was like a weird like stabilization weirdness on that particular acro, but whatever. Because anytime the fish swims by, it'll do that. So anyway, I don't know how true that is. Some people say it's completely not true. The place that I am going to be getting them from, they're like, it's absolutely true. We've lost a whole bunch of anemones to that. In my experience, I've had the same thing happen where when I mix bubble tips, certain bubble tips just die off. Very, very bizarre. It's almost like they do some kind of chemical warfare with each other. Long story short, 2 250-gallon show tanks, and I am thinking about doing like Colorado sunbursts in one, and like that half and half 2-faced bubble tip in the other, or something along those lines, or maybe like Chicago sunburst. So it's basically high-end bubble tip anemones on their own tanks in their own completely separate systems. So thinking about it. Samir Ali, it seems that you frag a lot of zoas. Do you guys ever had an accident with your toxins, especially PALYTHOAs? Maybe my mom got palytoxin poisoning once. So they're not always super safe. Like, I remember at some point somebody cut a zoanthid or PALYTHOA with a knife that I swear within 5 minutes was cutting an apple. So nobody here has gotten really sick, but I'm thinking that my mom one time was complaining about having night sweats one night. I'm like, that sounds eerily close to getting palytoxin poisoning, and you probably did it yourself. But if you have any modicum of safety standards, you probably will be fine. Now, PALYTHOA freak me out more than zoanthids do. Like, there's certain types of pallies that I don't even want to touch. I don't want to pick them up because I can practically just like feel different just holding it in my hand, like the weirdness about that slime and stuff. So yeah, I don't like messing with big pallies, but zoas I don't really care as much about. Gabe's Reef Tampa, thank you for the $1.99 super chat. Where is 2 please? I don't know, might be busy. It's funny, it's like a bar, you know, you go to, and then like all the regulars at the bar is like, where's so-and-so? It's almost like you're expected to show up if you're a regular. It's funny. Alfredo Reyes Deus. Oh, I'm sorry, Alfredo Reese Deus. I created a video giving funny names to my corals, but they ended up not being as ridiculous as the real names vendors give to corals these days. Facts. There are some really, really, really goofy names out there. So Becca, the new girl here, she's kind of, well, she's new to the entire industry. And when we mention certain names, she thinks that we're just being like silly. But it's like, no, that is the name that was given to these things by like the marketplace. She's like, that's so ridiculous. I'm like, yeah, exactly. Harkins, I want to do a cocoa worm and Christmas tree specific tank. Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. Definitely. Let's see, Sean Davies, what is an attractive yet indestructible coral? If I had to just say something off the top of my head, I really like some of like the really exotic toadstool leathers. Like we've got some that are like a really cool bright green with white polyps. In general, like toadstool leathers and stuff like that, they're pretty tough. And I think especially once they get larger, they've got like a cool motion to them, especially when they have like longer tentacles and kind of that contrast of like the bright white, like a snow white and like the bright neon green base. You kind of get a little bit of everything going on. Harkins, wear gloves and a face mask. These days, face mask, everyone should have them. So, you know, my state of Ohio, I gotta give them credit. They're trying really hard. Like some states, not as impressed with you guys. Hate to say it, not super impressed. Ohio though, like I got something in the mail from like workers' comp, and you never want to get mail from workers' comp. Let me tell you, if you're a business owner, last thing you want to see is some big giant package from workers' comp, right? But what it was an entire thing of like hundreds of face masks. I'm like, what a bro, workers' comp. Way to look out. Way to look out. So yeah, it's like if you're in good standing with workers' comp, they sent out all of these face masks for you to hand out to your employees. Like, good job. Yeah, gloves. Sure, why not? I just heard an explosion outside. Weird, okay. Sandy Amador, I purchased a rainbow bubble tip anemone from Tidal Gardens and love it. It's gotten so big from the feeding at Rod's Food. Nice, nice. Yeah, like some of these bubble tips are just gigantic. But you know, for us, our biggest problem is that we are running out of room. It sounds ridiculous, but trust me, we're running out of room. And just finding good spots to keep stuff has been a bit of a challenge. Dude, I gotta say, every day I am bugging my plumber. It's like, guys, gotta get back over here, finish plumbing up this other system. And they're just like super busy with other stuff. I'm like every single day banging on these guys. Dave Davis, hello Than, been a while. How's it going, Dave? You missed your Patreon shout out earlier, so thanks, Dave. Jared McCullough, love my Orphic, nice. Yeah, so one of the guys from Orphic, long time ago, had actually visited the facility, but it's been a long time ago. I don't even know if he's still there. And then B, our facility has changed times 10 billion since that he saw it. So yeah, I'm reaching back out to that company, and I haven't used their products like basically since then, but I'm taking another look at them because, like I said, they've got one product that I think would be like perfect for this really specific application I'm looking for. So we'll see. Sounds like that church had a Holy Spirit arise. Yeah, you know what? Now that I think of it, we were talking earlier about them. Like, you guys probably shouldn't be testing all that like high voltage stuff like in a rain shower. Just saying, guys. No, and here's the thing, okay? I have such a good relationship with that church next door. They let me use their parking lot to drive heavy equipment back here to our property. And like we like jacked up all this stuff, and we fixed it afterwards, but it was like a year of like, gross stuff that we were doing to access our property over here. So thank you guys like so much for that. But then later on, they were having like this like a fall festival last year, and they asked, "Can we land a helicopter in your backyard?" And I'm like, "Yeah, no problem." They absolutely landed a helicopter in my backyard. So maybe we're even. I don't know. It's kind of cool. Let's see. Macy's daddy, I have rock flower nems that are spawning and bubble tips in the same tank. Do you think that there will be an issue with the two different types? Probably not, unless they're just fighting each other like physically, like right on top of each other, killing each other. I think that all the other like chemical stuff, I think is just between different types of bubble tips. Speed Demon, Than. I can have other acros in my tank, but for some reason, millies die nearly overnight. Any ideas? I'm really not sure. Millies tend to be fairly robust as far as acros go. But sometimes certain varieties are just difficult for some people to keep. Like we got this one type of bottle brush variety. It's like a pinkish red one called a red dragon. We can't keep that to save our lives. Every single time we get them, they die. I mean, I can give you like a standard answer. Check your water chemistry, see if anything is like weird or out of line. And even I consider weird and out of line 0 nitrate, 0 phosphate. Like whenever I see that sort of stuff happening, I'm like, I get worried. And so you know how I was, so if you're new to this live stream, we have like an ongoing joke about our terrible water chemistry. But lately in the past couple months, the water chemistry has gotten like really good. And in one of our systems, which no joke is 15 years old or something, which had chronically high nutrient levels, is now looking like 0 phosphate, 0 nitrate. I'm like, don't know how that happened exactly, but here we are. We need to feed more. Jorge Sanchez, just wanted to say thanks for all the information. Thank you for watching. Don't think that there's another site like this. Really great images and all the relaxing mood. Congrats. Thanks. The Void Entity. I want to purchase an expensive frog spawn, but don't know exactly how rare it is. It's an Indo-orange frog spawn. Do you know how rare it is? Rarity is kind of like... It is rare, I guess. But it's also kind of like location dependent, like where you are also. Some, you know, there's like common stuff that some people think that under no circumstances would anybody ever want. And it's like a bestseller for us because someplace else it's highly desirable. When it comes to like buying corals to like just try to find something like rare and unique, a lot of it just comes down to also what you're familiar with, and you can kind of get a feel for, you know, something that's going to be super in demand. But also at the end of the day, who cares if other people want it? Just as long as you're happy with it. Even when it comes to, for us to purchase corals, like oftentimes what we end up getting is more because we like it, not necessarily because it's going to be a hot seller. There are some financial consequences to that, but it's something that we've kind of stuck with because we like to look at what we like. Harkins Aquatics, have you seen the A500 from Orphic? They're major players in the public aquarium lighting. Yes, so if we're talking about like the Amazonas 500s, yes. They make a smaller unit that I'm considering. It's like, I forget which numbering system that they called it. But yeah, I'm looking at, basically looks like concert lighting. That's kind of what I'm going for. I think the A500s, for what I'm looking at, it's probably like massive overkill, and I think I need like more fixtures without that penetrating power. So the smaller unit might be perfect. Daniel Valderrama made it. Awesome. So we're only on item number 78, and we're going to be going to 190, I believe. So good amount of time left. Robert Mitchell, how come you and Jake Adams have never done a video together? Count on one hand how many videos I've done with anybody else. Part of it is I don't travel anywhere. Other thing is, like, YouTube collaboration in general has dipped, I would say. Like think of how many people have been on this channel before. It's like 3 or less. It's not very many. Yeah. It's like Jake Adams, fill in the blank with any name. I think the only thing that we've done remotely recently as far as collaboration was, I think I was on Reef Dudes last month. And he was not bugging me. He was asking politely. But he's been trying to get me on his YouTube channel, I think for over a year. It just kind of like worked out that way. Somebody's trying to call. That ain't happening. Leave a message. Yeah. Harkins, you could just mount them on the second floor to hit the first floor. Yes, that is true. The problem with mounting them on the second floor would be a huge pain in the butt because that second floor is like 30 feet in the air. But there's that tank that has like those like the two like pergola things, which is about 6 feet above the tank, and that's where I want to mount the lights, because I essentially want to do mangroves in that tank still. And by freeing up all that airspace would be like perfect to allow like a 6 foot, 7 foot tree to grow. Let's see. Chad McKean, hey Than, I have flower nems touching some PALYTHOA grandis, which are closed up. Should I assume that they're releasing toxin? No, probably not. You might be surprised. They're just closed and really unhappy. You might, want to separate those guys. But the releasing toxin part is, they don't usually just like broadcast it in that way. It's usually from like flesh damage, right? From an actual cut or an abrasion. Dave Waters, what's up, Dan? Your new building is going to be beautiful. Thank you. It's coming along. It's definitely coming along. There's a deal that we're looking at doing. It's not exactly reef aquarium related, but if we're able to get started on that, it's going to be like a big, huge improvement. And I'm not going to ruin that one just yet, because there's a lot of moving parts to that. It's a big deal. And I might as well just ruin it. So I am thinking about putting up solar panels and Tesla batteries here. So we actually had some installers and engineers come in this past week, and we were looking at just how much panel coverage we could get here. Turns out it's a lot. And just the way that our scrambled egg of wiring circuitry, because of all the electrical that we've got going on, and how to best go about doing backup power for critical systems, with both like the battery plus solar options. So we're looking at that, because I got a quote from an electrician to do just straight battery backup. I'm sorry, not battery, straight natural gas generator backup. And the price tag for that gets us into the shooting range for basically Tesla batteries. And Tesla batteries are one of those things that you can scale up. Same thing with solar panels. We just keep on adding more in a future date. So we're taking a hard look at that, because again, it's a big deal no matter what, whether I decide to go with the generator or if I decide to go with batteries and solar. But I think that'll be really cool, because the nice thing about going with the solar route is that they do have a payback period, right? So I would love to completely just eliminate my electricity bill. That'd be so neat. Brandon C. just got my water box 130 shipped this week. Congratulations, Brandon. Look forward to joining future live sales to stock the tank when it's cycled. Nice. Yeah, definitely take your time with that cycle. That cycle is no joke. We screwed up big time by thinking that we had our quarantine system cycled. They weren't cycled, so we just bombed out all these acros and they browned out and looked terrible because we put them through a full cycle. Turns out, not great. Harkins, love to do a show with you. You'll have to make it out to here, and I don't recommend traveling, so don't do that. You know, I'm still bummed that the last time I was going to travel to Vegas didn't work out because, you know, of ongoing health-related issues. Like they shut down everything. This was like right at the beginning of the outbreak, and I'm like, man. And then since then, I gotta say it's getting worse. Drew Long 77, Than the Man, so happy, just caught the live show. Welcome. Did I miss LEPTOSERIS or SAKURA yet? You probably did, but I think we have more. I talked to you when I was in Ohio about stopping by and a fully encrusted branching. I talked to you when I was in Ohio about stopping by and a fully encrusted branching rockscape. Oh, okay, cool. Let's see. Cypress Reefers. Hello, Than. Good to hear from you again. Awesome. Thanks for joining. Than, I'm not going to spoil it yet. 10 minutes later. Guys, this is what I'm doing. 10 minutes, like 10 seconds later. Yeah, so the only problem with Tesla batteries in Ohio is that there's something called peak shaving that works in like places like California and Hawaii and stuff like that, which is there's like drastically different electrical rates that you pay when you're on peak versus off peak. And in Ohio, it's all kind of homogeneous from what I understand. It's kind of like flat rate, where if you do have these like the on and off different pricing, right? Like in California. The Tesla batteries can load up on the cheap electric, you know, at midnight or whenever, 2 a.m., and then discharge it to offset your peak usage during like noon when your AC is running and everything like that, and you're consuming a ton of electricity at the highest rate. So it's basically like day trading on this like electrical rate arbitrage. And you can actually save quite a lot of money on that separation from like peak to budget rates. And so unfortunately, I don't think that's going to work out for us unless the utilities here change what it is that they do, which is always a possibility in the future. But as far as solar goes, it turns out that our roof is pretty well situated to do pretty well. So I'm excited to see how that goes. Now, my goal is to just get my foot in the door as far as like the infrastructure, and then scale it up over the course of like the rest of this year, because there's currently still a 26% federal tax credit that expires in December. It goes down to 22%, and then it goes down to 10% after that. So this year is the last time to get the 26%. So come like December, I might like get into like a contract to expand the solar coverage, solar and battery. What I kind of missed out on though is that it was a geothermal tax credit that maybe I might retroactively be able to sign up for, because if you followed my building update, we just installed a geothermal cooling system, and yeah, I didn't really look into the tax incentives about that, so that could save me some lunch money. Let's see. Cypress Reefers, 0 nitrate and phosphate, 1 acre in green style close their polyps. All other SPS, including Montiporas and ANACROPORAs, look happy. Is this a big concern? Some people really like the whole zero nitrate phosphate thing, I don't. I like to have detectable quantities of both. I would feel a lot happier if the nitrates were 10 parts per million and phosphate was 0.05 or something detectable for phosphate, because we have had insanely high phosphates with few issues, but zero phosphate I think is a recipe for some worse issues than if it was insanely high. Sandy Amador, at Tidal Gardens, do you use T5s or LED or a combination for your corals? We use a little bit of everything depending on what tank they're in. We are slowly, I would say, transitioning to LED. We still have plenty of T5 fixtures though. Let's see. Martanis, solar panels coincide nicely with max power usage in reef tanks. True. Like when it comes to our electrical usage, 90% of it happens when the sun is out. So obviously lighting is a huge electrical expense, but also cooling is a huge electrical expense. And that's only really an issue when the sun is out. So like air conditioning or big exhaust fans and stuff like that, it's all about taking care of heat. One thing that's kind of interesting is that we recently rewired our greenhouse. So like everybody keeps on asking, are you going to tear that greenhouse down? It's like, no, we're like doubling down on the greenhouse. So it's now even more high tech of a greenhouse. And one of the things is we were looking to do a 3-phase 48-inch exhaust fan. We have a single phase fan now. And if we go to a 3-phase fan, it will be a lot more gentle electrically, and it'll probably save us a little bit in electrical consumption. Problem is, it cannot be backed up by battery very easily. Neither like the Generac batteries or the Tesla batteries are a good fit to back up that fan. So the thought is, do we in the future replace our fan with another single phase fan, or do we go with a 3-phase fan but not be able to back it up? Because honestly, if we're out for like a day or so without that exhaust fan, it's not the end of the world. But for all the other times that that fan runs, we would save electricity if we were going with a 3-phase unit. So that's kind of one of those like little strategic things that we have to decide. John Evans. Sorry, I'm skipping around, and I apologize in advance if I miss your questions. John Evans. Can I do anything about PALYTHOA taking over my tank? You have to aggressively frag it and either give it away or sell it. Selling it is a little bit more difficult these days because there's no shows to go to, but that's really the best option, is to just get it out of your tank if you're having an overgrowth of anything, whether it be PALYTHOA or anything like that. That's how this whole business of mine started, was what do I do with all these cuttings that I have? Okay, Gabe's Reef Tampa. What are some things that are to be expected when moving a reef across town? A mental breakdown, like a total freak out, is likely. That is one of the most stressful things I've ever felt in my whole life. Wasn't a law school exam, wasn't the bar exam, wasn't the SAT or anything like that. The most stress I ever felt was when I was taking down an aquarium and putting up a new aquarium in the same spot. Just like the level of effort that it takes to do that, and knowing that like as soon as you start, you're on this like clock before all your stuff dies. It's like, it's such a pain. What I would do, if you had the opportunity, is to fully set up a tank in the other location. The idea of taking down a tank, moving it across town, setting up that same tank while moving all the livestock is like nightmare fuel for me. Straight up nightmare fuel. So if it is just the cost of like the tank and now's a good time to upgrade some components maybe, but you will save money in therapy because it is such, and like I'm just gonna throw this out there. All the people helping in your personal relationships will suffer from this day. One guy that came in to help me move that one tank, okay? He came in about 6 hours into it. So I'd already been working 6 hours on this, going nuts. And he was such a bro. He came and helped me out. It's been 20 years. And Dale, he still, to this day, brings up the fact that he helped me out 20 years ago. So, long story short, it sucks. Try to do anything possible to make it easier on yourself, including setting up a new aquarium at the new location. Speed Demon, yeah. Ooh, okay, so I see some comments about electrical. Yes, peak is like 0.67 per kilowatt. Off peak is 0.2 per kilowatt. Harkins tax credit was huge for me. I've heard multiple things when it comes to the tax credit. Like at one point, solar technology was increasing in productivity and quality faster than what was justified by the federal tax incentive. So one person, could be a total made-up story, they're saying that this is back when the tax credit was 30%. Said that they would have been better off waiting a year, not getting that incentive at all, buying the better, newer panels, because it would have saved more than 30%. Like, cool, I don't know. Because, and that was like a few years ago, so maybe the quality of these things have like leveled off a bit. Because I was talking with the engineers, and I was asking, does it make sense to do like the sun tracking panels, that can like do this sort of thing to kind of like follow the sun? Does it make sense to, because my rooftop goes east-west, not like north-south, because like you want south-facing, and does it make sense to like tilt the solar panels towards the south? And they're like, no, because all that's going to happen is the wind is going to blow the panels off, or leaves are going to get stuck in there. So they said that the panels nowadays are so cheap that it makes more sense just to add more solar panels rather than to optimize everything about the solar panels that you have. So like nowadays, tracking isn't a thing because the expense that you would put into the tracking systems, just add more solar panels. It'll be cheaper and it'll generate more electricity. So yeah, when it comes to solar, I think that we're finally getting to the point where it's kind of mature. And hopefully there are future advancements, but for right now, I think that like hopping into solar could work out. Oh, also, this is how insane the discussions were getting. We weren't just talking about Tesla power walls. We were talking about the Tesla power pack, which is like used at like electrical utilities. And it turns out that like the electrical power pack, which by the way is like mid six figures, was not a good fit. Besides the fact that it's mid six figures in price, it wasn't a good fit because of the voltage difference. Because you're working with like much higher voltages, it wouldn't work with my transformer. Bummer. So we're looking at multiple power walls for our install here. Okay. Microbius Blue, greetings from the UK Reefers. What's up? What's up? Thank you for coming. There's always a resident vertical with vertical wind turbines. Okay, so in Ohio, wind turbines aren't going to be a thing because there was like some regulation for the offset needed. I think you need to be like 10,000 feet away from your boundary. So somehow some shenanigans happened with the regulators. you need to be like miles away from your neighbor to have wind turbines, because there's like farmers that want to have wind turbines on their like mega acreage and cannot because of the offset requirements. So unfortunately, it looks like wind is not a thing in Ohio. Let's see, Octopus's Garden LLC. Do you feel LED is better than 400 watt 14K metal halides and T5s? Better is very, very subjective. LED will save you a lot more in electricity and in bulb replacements. It has much better controllability. It is much less heat. There are many people that will swear by the performance of the metal halide T5 combo. And they would be right. It's fantastic light. Much better for photography as well, if that's important to you. But yeah, it's a lot of personal preference in there, because what I've seen from 2 different high-end fixtures for LEDs, both Ecotech Radions as well as the Orphix that my friend Nathan has on his frag system, outstanding. Like, I would have no issue if that's how my coral's colored up, like none whatsoever. They're outstanding. So a lot of like, is it better? It really depends on how you define better. Puddle Aquatics, Than, will you continue to use any T5 fixtures in the new building, or will you eventually move over to all LEDs? So one of the big problems with T5 in my new building is the heat generated. When I generate heat in my new building, it stays in my new building until the air conditioner removes the heat. So there are some issues heat-wise with this building. Having said that, I love how T5s photograph. So we might have some dedicated photography tanks that might be T5 in here, and I'll just deal with the heat. Which, by the way, dealing with the heat is not nothing. It might involve me adding another air conditioner to my building. Definitely not nothing to deal with. But T5s are really nice to shoot photographs in. Greg Reefboy, Than, your QT tanks have white background and white base. Why? Is it for finding pests quickly? Yes. Or expanding light using white as an internal reflector? It is for pest detection. And same reason for why I have white on the inside of my sump. I want to hide nothing. I want to be able to diagnose problems and see everything. That's the idea. Let's see, Matt Naranjo. You're not saving electricity, just amperage from your service. Electric usage is the same unless you get commercial power cost savings. So, okay, with 3-phase. So I heard a couple of different things. And again, when it comes to electricity, I am not a good source. I don't know what I'm talking about. This is just saying what I've heard, okay? But I heard that if you're not maximizing the 3 legs coming from 3-phase, you're basically just getting charged for the most usage off of the highest leg. And because of that, we were essentially paying for a lot of power that we weren't using, because a lot of our load was all on this one leg from a lot of like the single-phase stuff compared to the 3-phase stuff that we could be using. So I don't know how that plays in, but that's what I heard. And partly, like, I heard a lot of stuff from a lot of electricians that turned out to be wrong. So who knows? Who knows? I'll tell you when I get the bill. How's that? Tesla batteries cannot be charged from the grid by law. 1000% false. Guaranteed false. Like, I can link you many videos that are showing Tesla batteries getting charged from the grid. They cannot. So there might be something that, I don't know if this is, I don't want to put words in your mouth, okay? But there's a thing where you need to have a gateway shut off so you don't deliver battery power back to the grid. But every system, solar, battery, whatever, here, especially like in Ohio, must be grid tied. By law, must be grid tied. And there is this 2-way transfer that happens. But when there's a power outage, it then will shut off going back to the grid so that like line workers don't get killed by my batteries, that sort of thing. But as far as like Tesla batteries not being connected to the grid, definitely not true. Or getting charged from the grid. No, they absolutely do. Like look up like peak shaving. That's kind of the whole point. Yeah, funny we built Tesla charging stations on the grid from Edison transformers. Yeah, Thomas Edison's such a fraud. Like, sorry dudes, but anybody who electrocutes an elephant, you're on my bad people forever list. Justin White, when can we expect Tidal Gardens exclusive corals? I always see Jason Fox, WWC, TSA, yada yada yada. People want some fan-selected homegrown. Maybe in the future. I am kind of out of the name game. But there's certainly, you know what's funny? There's more places out there that have Tidal Gardens branded coral than Tidal Gardens does. We like brand nothing on our site, but occasionally you'll see like, oh, this is a Tidal Garden such and such. Like that's very flattering. Yeah, power packs, like a Tesla power pack is like 960 volts. Yeah, there's different ones. I think that there was like a 460 as well. But either way, like our transformer is 204, 110 or whatever. But it's not power pack. And also my bank account is not power pack friendly. I got the 30% last year. My panels have the highest kilowatt per panel. It's awesome. Maybe a full Tesla solar roof. So solar roofs, it's not going to look good on my. Basically, like a regular solar panel system would look great on my roof because we've got metal roofs. Panels are dirt cheap. Inverter, battery manager, that thing is expensive. Yes. I haven't seen the official quote yet, but I mean, there's a lot of infrastructure that is not solar panels and batteries. There's like inverters, there's gateways, there's like transfer switches. There's a lot of stuff. Tiger King chalice, yeah, you can thank Ben for that. Jake George, is there a Carol Baskin chalice? He's so proud of that, calling that thing the Tiger King. Alberto Valenzuela, is it possible to have a Micromusa garden or will they attack each other? If they're Micromusa lords, it's probably fine. You run into problems when it's like you're doing like Acan Echinatas and Micromusa lords. So those things will fight to the death, which will happen within hours. Tattoo dancer. My LFS is super impressed with my acroporas and want me to culture for him and pay fair prices. Awesome. Kind of proud, and your video certainly helped me learn, so thanks. Well, you're welcome. And I'm glad that your hobby is able to start to pay for itself. That's a great feeling. And yeah, and it's like less strain on wild caught stuff. It's all good. Especially now since it's more and more difficult to get the wild caught stuff. Yeah, it turns out that aquaculture, it's kind of cool. Any tips on, so VC is asking, any tips on removing bubble tip anemones that have wedged themselves into the rock without actually breaking the rock? Thank you. To varying degrees of success, what I've done before, which barely works, is to take the rock out of the water and kind of like hang it upside down so like the anemone kind of pulls away slowly, but they hang on for like a really long time. The best thing I can think of is to get like wood carving tools, like stainless steel wood carving tools that have like little, like looks like little hockey sticks and stuff like that, and slowly peel back the foot, really gently and slowly. Jeff Weaver, best method to keep the tank glass very clean on the outside. Yes, there is a best method. It is a spray bottle with RO and a squeegee. Best thing ever. Best thing ever. Luis Heredia, hello from Tijuana. Welcome. Thank you, Luis. Sean Davies, are Xenia still your top seller? Probably. Probably. They have a long, they've got a long, big lead ahead of all the other corals. Victor Viking, blue star polyps bad. Depends. Some people are still looking for it to cover every inch of their rock. Like if you see what Rico's Aquariums' old tank used to look like, it was stunning giant acro colonies, and every surface of rock was covered by those blue things. Sean Davies, coral labels appear to be incorrect. Don't know what number you're looking at. It's possible, but unlikely. Because I'm looking at item number 130. That one's correct. So maybe there's... Oh, so Luke said, oh no, I see the blue clove polyps are missed. Could be. So let's see, what's the label for this guy here? Hopefully it's correct. Nuclear green pallies. So whatever got missed hopefully wasn't the biggest deal in the world. Aaron Alexander, you got a nice shout out the other day from Mad Hatter, Zufri, Raven. You know what? I did see that. I almost never watch a lot of like aquarium YouTube, and for some reason I came across like his video, and I did see that, so I liked his video. I dropped a like. Speaking of, if you'd like to be a bro or a sis, drop a like on this video. I appreciate it. It's good for the algorithms. Deacanthus Reef. I love Alveopora. Also, Ghani number 128 is gorgeous. Thanks. Yeah, you know, Ghanis are like quickly climbing my favorite corals list. For the longest time, we didn't have a lot of success with them, but you know, times change. We get better. We find better quality specimens that survive a lot better. And now it's like we've got a collection of, I think, 9 or 10 different varieties of Ghaniopora. And people are going to rush to the website. They're going to see like one variety of Ghaniopora or something. But trust me, I'm growing some really, really cool varieties. We hope to have glitter bombs back in stock at some point, but we only have a handful of those because we only started with like one colony of that. Not even a colony. It wasn't even a colony. We started with a frag of that. And we've sold like maybe 2 or 3 ever, stuff like that. So we hope to like get a whole bunch more growing because we finally got a few out of quarantine into our main growing systems downstairs here in the new building, and they're doing super well. And under like the radion lights, when it turns all blue, like we have these red ones, and it's just like, you know, this like nice flame red one. And it looks so crisp and sharp that it looks like it's like rendered. You know, it's almost like you're looking at some what is it called? Like it's like Pokemon Go, right? It's not altered reality, augmented reality. It looks like this Ghaniopora was rendered in real time in front of your face because it looks like it's just jumping out of the tank. Lenny Kruger, sometimes the item is gone from the website because it's bought before the show's up on the stream. Yeah, that's true, because we made one change since Becca has started here, and in that before item number 136, right? These Hulk Zoas. If you went to the website, all you would see is a white square that said 136 on it, and that did not make it super easy to shop. You kind of had to watch the live show, and we just didn't have like the manpower to shoot and process every single photo and upload everything. But since we do have a little bit more manpower now, with both Luke and Becca being like full time, you know, we've been able to do a lot more. So now, you know, when we upload the live show for public consumption, you see thumbnails for every single coral. So it is entirely possible that like people can get in there and snatch up corals a little bit ahead of like when they're shown online. Also, having said that, this live show will go like for a few days after the broadcast. So if you happen to be catching this on the rebroadcast of the show, do not worry. Do not worry. You still have a few days to pick and choose out of the remaining stuff. Having said that, a lot of the stuff does sell on the first day. Lawrence Chan, yeah, those are some really green blue clove polyps. Yeah, so I checked the sheet and the blue clove polyps and the green star polyps are out of order. Appears just to be those two only. Okay, good to know. Whatever. Well, you know what we might even do? We might like, we might do something where like, if somebody was confused as to what they actually bought, we'll go with what the thumbnail is and not what the live show said. Does it, if that makes sense. Tattooed Dancer. Speaking of GAUNTLET, mine grew around and under its rock onto the sand bed, opened it up for infection. Uh-oh. Now it's going on a tall plug. Yeah, it's a good idea. It's always so weird how substrate is like great for some corals and not so great for others. Then again, I've seen GAUNTLET, like certain ones, like people just put it on the substrate, period. Let's see, KDub Corals is asking, I have green star polyps growing on my back glass. I wonder if I could mix it with blue star polyps next to it? Probably. Probably, yeah. I mean, star polyps aren't really all that mega aggressive to one another. Sorry, I'm hearing the church drop the beats again. It's like, what is that? Oh, it's the church. It's like Skrillex over there. Let's see. Okay, so Chap Him Wong is asking, looking for advice. For some reason, I can't get my GSP to grow no matter where I place them. My Monties and leather corals do grow a lot. Try this. Blast them with a lot of flow. I've noticed that green star polyps, when they get a ton of flow, tend to grow really quickly. Lenny Kruger, 134 through like 142 before they even showed up. Yeah. So that's, people are shopping ahead. They're like, I don't need Than to talk about anything. I can shop from thumbnails. Casey Wagner, how hard is it to cross into Canada with coral? Personally, not shipping. Is there CITES issues for traveling with them? Yes. Once I'm in Ontario, I want to bug someone to bring me Tidal Gardens corals. Very illegal. Do not recommend. I don't recommend it on the US side or the Canadian side. Like, if you want to break the law, there are definitely more profitable ways to do it, because I'm not even joking. This stuff is like, so CITES is an international treaty. It is like regulated by like federal authorities. So when people get into like federal trouble for this stuff, it's bad, like big fines, possible jail time. It's not like a speeding ticket. It's like, oh, I didn't know, this is like some like bummer. No, it's a problem. You're like federally screwed. So that's definitely not something that I would ever recommend anybody doing. Like, it's coral, definitely not worth possible jail time. And like, I know that like one of the folks that does a lot of import, I don't do a lot of import business, but just like transcription errors on CITES documentation versus like stocking lists and stuff like that as to what's actually shipped, that in its own, just transcription errors, like typos and stuff like that, are a big problem, to the point where he factors in a 5-figure budget every year just to pay like federal CITES fines and stuff like that. That's just part of the cost of doing business as an importer. Like, it's crazy. Like, you know, just every single time getting hit for like, you know, thousands of dollars. And if you keep on making these mistakes, it gets worse and worse. So first offense might be only a few $1,000s. Towards the end, it's going to be tens of thousands of dollars. Then they'll just cancel your license. But if you're just smuggling, it could be bad. When I was in the UK, I heard of some discussions, let's just say, that involved some regulators and enforcers there. And they sounded pretty serious about it, let's just say. They sounded pretty serious. They were in the process of looking for offenders. So just don't. Art of War. Mr. Than, the green-mouth gold-tip torch purchased maybe 2.5 years ago is still going strong, fingers crossed, till this day. No, that is awesome. Like, that's a long time to be successful with a torch. That's excellent. Tattooed Dancer 91. Yeah, we can hear the church bass drop. Exactly. Joseph Puzo. Than, ever have any nasty reactions to any coral on skin? Yeah. So oftentimes, like on like this area here that tends to be thinner, I've gotten a rash before. So you know, like when you go like wakeboarding or surfing or anything like that, you know, these guys are wearing like what looks like a jiu-jitsu gi, or not a gi. It's a jiu-jitsu rash guard. Well, you know, like there's rash guards for water activities, scuba diving and whatnot. There's a reason why they call it a rash guard, because if you don't have it, you're gonna get a rash. That's just how reefs go. And your tanks, especially larger tanks, can have that same dynamic. You can absolutely get a rash from working in your tank. And I have gotten these rashes plenty of times on especially the thin parts of my skin. And it sucks because it lasts like 2 weeks. It's no fun, no fun. Casey Wagner, definitely worth asking. So it's probably better to get a group to do a large buy, like 30 grand, and have orders through an established buyer. Yes. Make sure everything is legit. Just saying. Yeah. But that is, I think that's perfectly acceptable. Legitimate documentation, chain of transfer, and everything like that. And it's going to be like a really big order to justify the effort to go through it, because especially now, like import-export was always problematic for a lot of money reasons, right? It's expensive. It's triple the price now. I mean, when some of my import-export friends told me like how much they had to pay in shipping and documentation, I'm like, that's all of your profit. Like, you better have some monster deal lines up for this stuff, because like one number I heard was like on an $8,000 order. This is an overseas order, granted. Okay, and an $8,000 order, the shipping and fees were $2,000 of it. Like, that's crazy. That's just in shipping fees and documentation and all the fees associated with that. But then it's like, if you have any DOAs, that could be a problem. You know, there's all kinds of stuff. And you're talking about overseas shipping. There's going to be some risk of that. And that's assuming that there's no issues with flights, because nowadays there are a lot of issues with flights, as you can imagine. Jake George. Hey, Than, or chat. I'm doing a water change while watching and noticed quite a bit of coralline growing on my Chado. Is this an issue? Should I be trimming the covered bits up? It's probably fine. Not a big deal. Yeah, Harkins. Documentation has tripled in price alone. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a mess. Like, people were thinking like, oh man, like finally we can get Indo back again and it's going to be cheap. Indo is barely back again, let me tell you, and it is not cheap. So one of the guys that I like to purchase from, it's like the first time he's seen anything in like 6 months, first of all, because it's that difficult to get flights. And when you see the price list, like even the importer price list, like your eyes want to fall right out of your head and just like crawl away. Like stuff that I thought was insanely expensive years ago would be like, let's just say it's like $70. And it's like, that's a ridiculous price. Cause then I have to sell it for like a whole bunch more in the event that maybe I might lose one or two. And so to still make a profit, blah, blah, blah. 70 is a high starting point. That same coral now is $500. So you do the math on that. Like how much do you need to sell it for to cover all the risk of loss plus actually making a profit on that? It's like, I don't even think I want this that bad. So yeah, the idea that like, oh, like Indo's gonna open up and it's gonna be like wonderful. It's not. Aquaculture right now is your biggest friend ever. So if there's places that are doing like really, really good aquaculture, like really doing a good job, you know, keeping control of like the pest situation, support them, because it's like it's a lot of effort. And as like an industry as a whole, I am seeing more of a trend towards it, which I think is like a very positive thing. Merfolk Magic. Than, what has been the most challenging business problem you face in starting your business? Supply, sourcing, etc. I would say that for me specifically, it is temperature control in a greenhouse. That's not probably very helpful to other people that are looking to start their own thing. So the other thing would be, it is just sales. Sales is the whole game. It's not how well you, obviously you need to have corals and you need them to grow and you need them to color up. But developing sales channels is the big challenge. Initially, it's like almost like a unicorn. It's like, how do I do this? And it's made it extra hard now that there's no like local frag shows to go to. There's no shows to go to. So you can't even get your name out that way. So if anything, I would say that what used to be an issue 20 years ago when this whole project started, a lot of like those little husbandry and coral growth related issues are pretty much done. I mean, sure, it's expensive to get good lighting and good equipment, which may or may not be available to you like early on with an early on budget. Like, and sometimes I take that for granted because it was so long ago, but we had to start with like cheap tubs, and most of which are still in operation now. And now it's like I have really expensive glass tanks, right? That sort of thing. But aside from just like the straight husbandry issues, which I think for the most part these days, people that are considering doing this professionally should be able to grow most coral successfully. If you can't, well, the situation's over pretty much, isn't it? But the real challenge, tenfold more difficult than the husbandry, is going to be the sales aspect. And if you can fix that problem, all the other problems will probably be fixed too, because you can throw money at it. Harkins Aquatics. Indo's expensive now. I've been mainly using Vietnam. Interesting, Harkins, because a lot of places, and by the way, casting no dispersions on Harkins, right? I like Harkins. He's a moderator in chat. So I heard that Vietnam as an import location is a little bit hairy because the documentation can get a little lax. And certain importers that are a little bit more conservative when it comes to that sort of issue have pretty much sworn off Vietnam entirely. So over here, we haven't seen a lot of Vietnamese stuff lately. And because I think that the pricing might be more favorable from Vietnam, but I heard that like there's some squirreliness with the regulation when it comes to that. And that's kind of giving some people pause. Obviously not the consumer end. Consumers don't care. Like, oh, I like these zoas, I'm gonna buy them. But like just from like a behind the scenes business end of stuff, I have heard like some internal memos go around that says, no Vietnam, no. It's like, I don't want to get like raided by Fish and Wildlife sort of thing. Rakenzi. I'm sure that there's a better way to pronounce that. Recognize. Okay. I'm sure there's a clever pronunciation for this that he's going for, and I just screwed it up for him. I always hear mixed opinions on placing euphilia together. Touching. What is your take? So my take is this. Can it be done? Yes. Are they fighting? Yes. Is it a problem? Probably not. But if I was to do it all, so I'm being a little bit of a hypocrite here. In my quarantine tank, whole bunch of high-end euphilia. They're all on top of each other because we are tight on space. Ideally, they would be 6 inches away from each other. Every single one of them that's a different type would be separate. So I would encourage you to give them some space as well. I think euphilia are at the price point these days where I don't want to be messing around with that. I would hate to lose a $500 torch or something like that just because it happened to be sitting next to a frog spawn. It's not my idea of a good time. So just like my aversion to those types of like aggression issues, give them as much room as possible. Will you have any rainbow chalices? Just some guy. I would love to have some rainbow chalices. Every single time that I see a rainbow chalice, first of all, so the first problem was it's $500 for a 1/4 inch or something like that. So I'm like, man, I don't want to pay $500 for a rainbow chalice. These days, I might pay $500 for a rainbow chalice. The problem is, every single one that I've seen in person in the last year hasn't been for sale. It'll be a part of somebody's collection. They'll be like, yeah, I'm growing this out. Or I just got this, it's just in quarantine. I just paid $500 for it. So maybe like down the road we can get you a piece. It's been a hot minute since I've even seen one available for sale. But I would absolutely love to add something like that into my collection to then offer it to you guys for a lot of money. Especially if I'm paying $500 for it. KEDD'S, I'm hoping Reefapalooza Orlando stays on for September. Yeah, KEDD'S, everything is pretty much done in Ohio, as Luke said. Yeah, pretty much. Mr. Best Shot 33, Than, what's your biggest oops moment? There's been plenty. There's been plenty of oops moments. My biggest oops moment lately, not firing my electricians. Oh, no. No scam likely call on my personal cell phone. Let's see. Kyle Plonsky, I don't see the hype on Acropora. I haven't seen much that I like. Fair. It's not for everyone. And like whatever is going to be a hype piece, it changes from year to year. Like especially if you're like only been in the hobby for like a couple years, you're like, why do people like a certain coral? Trust me, wait a few years, they won't be into that coral. They're going to be into something completely different that you're going to be unimpressed with. That's just kind of how this goes. Like for a long time, Acropora were not popular. And before that, they were really popular. Everything goes in cycles. Are we out of bounce mushrooms yet? Are bounce mushrooms canceled? I mean, like, what's the most expensive things that are out there in the market currently? Bubble tip anemones. Some of them fetch well into 4 figures, depending on coloration. There are some really highly desirable Acropora that are probably few $100s an inch. There's some interest still in some chalices. Goniopora are on the rise. Euphilia, how could I forget Euphilia? Like if you got some bomb Euphilia, oh yeah, hundreds of dollars, right? So it's all a matter of personal preference. Like some people, like obviously, their whole aquarium is dedicated to Acropora. Like Luke, his whole tank, I don't know if it's whole tank, but a lot of his tank is very Acropora centric. Yeah, it just depends on what you're into. Like, I don't exactly like, what do you call it? I never really liked bounce mushrooms personally, but obviously other people did. Okay, I need to quickly use the bathroom while you know what? Enjoy the free concert next door. If you can hear that. And I'm back. Too pleased with the super chat. Coming in right at the deadline. Good to see you, man. Good to see you. Let's see. Yeah, what was my biggest whoops? Hiring Luke? No, everyone likes Luke. Actually, I was thinking what might be like a big whoops done lately, which is it's an awesome whoops, okay? But so a little while back we got like this really nice like coffee machine, right? And it makes like all kinds of like fancy milk drinks, like, you know, macchiatos and stuff like that, and flat whites, like really cool stuff. But then I went overboard. I got a gelato machine, so we can make like homemade, like authentic Italian gelato here at work. And everybody was just like, okay, that might have been a little bit excessive. But then we tried our first batch, was like made with like fresh strawberries, and it came out and it was like heaven. And everybody was just like, oh no, this is a problem, because nobody's gonna be able to say no to this. And we're all gonna gain like 50 pounds. It's like, people are gonna be wondering like, why is everybody at Tidal Gardens fat? It's like, oh, because they have an ice cream machine at the office that nobody can resist. No, it was ridiculously good. Like, it's like, how is like cream and strawberries so delicious? Yeah, we ate that very quickly. So that's probably the biggest whoops. But you know what? No one's complaining yet. I just have to do like a couple extra sets of push-ups or something. I'm sure that's all it's gonna take. Adam McInerney. I don't know why I can't pronounce stuff right now. Adam McInerney, what do you think will be the next big coral? I still think we're in acro land. I think there's some really cool acros that are floating around that people don't have. I think that blastos could be, because on these like really expensive Indonesian shipments, there's some really cool blastos coming, and they're expensive, really expensive. Ori Bailey, isn't the point of regulation of coral so we don't destroy the ocean? We love our corals in the tank. We should love them to see them in the ocean without destroying or touching them. You would think, Ori, but I think it's a lot more like weirdly political than that. Because if we wanted to not destroy the ocean, you would have to kind of like end fishing. Like the amount of damage, like there's an infographic, okay, that I saw, and it was like the amount of tons of like damage and of just bycatch, like stuff that gets killed in the process of fishing, commercial fishing, that gets like just discarded and thrown away. Like there's entire species of like bottom dwelling fish that are now either endangered or extinct, and they were never on the menu. They were just killed as a process of like dredge lining and like whatever it is that like commercial fishing does. But it's like millions of tons or something like that. And compared to what this industry does is like a total joke. So the whole regulation aspect of this aquarium trade really isn't so much of an environmental thing. They try to like couch it in terms of environmental impact, but really what it is it's the regulation of exotic animals. So believe it or not, the they that's out there, because of freaking Tiger King, got it into their heads that they wanted to make an argument to ban all exotic animals. And they opportunistically also weaved in COVID-19. So like to stop the spread of this virus, they wanted to ban all exotic animal import-export, including coral. So I'm like, boy, you must be sore after that stretch. Wow. But anyway, whatever. So to answer your question, it's a lot more screwed up than that. But yes, as far as like trying to make like a minimal impact environmentally, it's gonna vary from company to company, like what they want to be doing. Like for example, does it make the greatest financial sense for us to do solar and battery backup and rainwater collection and geothermal? Probably not. I probably should have taken all that money and just spent and bought coral and flipped it or something to make more money. But at the same time, it's like I like to do this type of stuff. Like I think that those systems are really cool and I want them on my building. So there's just different perspectives that you're gonna like get on that. Like I'm like a doomsday prepper over here, right? It's like I got clean water. I'm gonna have like like my own energy thing, and like everybody around me is like a gun nut. It's gonna be whatever. Like I'm the only person here that's not a gun nut. Everybody else loves them some guns. Have you guys ever had weeping willows? We might have, but there's also there are a few other people in town that do, and at some point we have to get those and just to kind of compare them to what we have. We have some long polyped, long tentacled leathers. I'm a fan of this season's Greetings Montipora. I'm thinking about picking that up from you. I also like the mushrooms, but didn't see that many available at this time. Yeah, mushrooms is kind of a hard thing. Kind of hard. Casey Wagner, put a lock on the gelato machine and it only serves for weekly bonuses. Yeah. Yeah, we have to be careful of that. Careful of that. All right, guys, we're down to the final stretch here. So I will quickly give my shout outs again. So first off, let's say thank you to the YouTube members. There's two of them. There's Deidre Zuener and Ross Henderson. Thank you very much. I haven't seen either of them in chat yet, but they would have like some cool like badges and emojis and stuff like that. As far as Patreon, this is a much longer list. Toby Robinson, Bill Russell, Jeremy Altman, Dave Davis, who said hi in chat earlier, Kendra Ransom, Rebecca Hall, Alyssa, Miguel Pires, Scotty D, Rigoberto Rodriguez, Thomas Tarrant, who I think also is in chat, Keith Singer, Skylar Korn, Sana Nomine, Puddle Aquatics, Amy Bruner, Tim Garner, Harkins, what's up? Diane Rishworth, Phil Harton, Zara McIntosh, Brandy Camp, Gwen Nicodemus, Lisa Clow, Christopher Frame, Ernest Wallace Jr., Classroom Reef, Chuck Admire, Jean A. Van Voorst, Rico's Aquariums, Christopher H. Curry, Alan Jackson, Kevin Cortez, Trevor Joseph Overbeck, and Ryan Kern. Awesome, you guys. Thank you guys so much for supporting us on Patreon and as members on the YouTubes. And two please, $1.99 and $2.99. What is that, an avocado emoji? Smash them thumbs up, you guys. Yes, thank you, thank you. Yeah, it's been fun, y'all. So the last item here is just a discounted 20-pack of snails, because I don't know if it's like this for everybody, but like springtime is like when we get hit with like all of our like algae issues and stuff like that when the season changes. Hey, Thomas Tarrant, yeah, thanks again. And so, yeah, like now is the time that we really need to be like hopping into like more cleanup crew stuff. And this last batch of like Astrea snails that we got has done like the best job. So anyways, guys, I'm gonna go make myself some ice cream. So I hope you guys enjoyed the stream. Like I said before, the corals, these Monties behind me, they'll be available until Tuesday, Wednesday-ish. Usually we let it run for a few days. So if you guys missed out on the bulk of the show the first time around, you still have an opportunity to check it out on the replay. Also, you can shop through the thumbnails, because now that's a thing, right? You can thank Becca for that. So again, I'll see you guys next time. We do have a lot of videos in the works now, so I will be getting off my butt and getting some more content for you guys to see there. So I will see you guys on the other side. Bye bye. Bye bye. Bye bye. Bye.